Disney Pixar is failing in a way they've never seen before. With their recent movies being major flops and their competitors taking over theaters, Pixar seems to have lost its magic at the box office. The story of how Pixar got here is quite interesting. From revolutionizing animated movies to their most recent film having the worst opening in Pixar history, it's clear that they're struggling. But why are they? And can they recover from this downfall? To answer that, we need to take a look at the beginning of Pixar's worldwide fame, which brings us to 1995. That was the year that Pixar's first ever movie was released. The film, of course, was Toy Story, and it was the first entirely computer animated feature film in the world. This movie was a massive breakthrough in technology, not only for Pixar, but the film industry as a whole. However, many critics doubted that a computer animated film could be any good. That doubt would be quickly washed away though, as the film went on to receive fantastic reviews in a groundbreaking 365 million box office total on a 30 million budget. Toy Story catapulted Pixar to fame while creating an unparalleled brand. But the love for Pixar didn't end there. For the next 15 years, Pixar continued to put out hit after hit with no signs of slowing down. Classics like Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Cars, Ratatouille, WALL-E, and Up made millions upon millions of people permanent fans of Pixar, and for good reason too. It seemed like Pixar couldn't go wrong with anything they put out. Their original stories with exceptional storytelling and fun plots created a magical viewing experience that no other studio could replicate. And better yet, they were doing this with barely any sequels, having only released 2 among their 11 total films up until 2010. And by that year, Disney was on cloud 9, making billions of dollars from these commercial successes after acquiring Pixar in 2006. However, Disney didn't know it at the time, but the following decade would show that Pixar was starting to lose some of its magic. Many people have deemed this decade the dark age of Pixar, and while I think that's a little harsh, it does have some merit to it. 2011 saw the release of Cars 2, which was widely considered Pixar's first major flop. And the movies that followed weren't as bad by any means, but it was evident that Pixar had a shift in priorities in the 2010s. For example, 6 of the 10 films released during this time were sequels or spin-offs of original movies. It was clear that Disney was trying to capitalize on the franchises they created the decade previously, and while they were undoubtedly successful in doing so, these movies seemed to tire out fans who wanted original films. Speaking of, some of the original films they did release during this time seemed to miss the mark among fans. While movies like Inside Out and Coco were praised, their other 2 originals, Brave and The Good Dinosaur, saw reviews below average of Pixar's expectations. However, the worst was yet to come for the company. The 2020s solidified the fact that Pixar was starting to crumble. Of course, the pandemic was a reason why, but that wasn't the only reason. Pixar's COVID-era movies were actually well received by fans, despite them being forced to watch them on Disney+. But it wasn't until after theaters opened up again that Pixar's reputation started to tarnish. The 2 most recent films from the studio, Lightyear and Elemental, were deemed back-to-back flops, and the numbers prove it. Lightyear, which was supposed to revive the Toy Story IP, lost Disney an estimated $106 million, while also facing controversy for excluding Tim Allen from the film and having political undertones. Then came Elemental a year later, which ended up having the worst 3-day weekend opening in the company's history, with a $29.6 million domestic debut, along with below average reviews. Now, these recent bombs don't mean Pixar is going bankrupt by any means, but it is alarming to see for a company that used to put out guaranteed hits. So, what went wrong? You might think it comes down to the pandemic or their films losing the magic they once had, but it goes much deeper than that. But first, yes, the pandemic definitely impacted Pixar's recent poor performance. The shift to releasing films on Disney Plus diminished the brand's value when it comes to theater releases because people became accustomed to watching new movies at home. This could be why their ticket sales have been below average recently, but while Pixar has struggled in theaters, other studios have thrived. Competing companies like Sony and Illumination have gained ground with successful releases like Across the Spider-Verse and Super Mario Bros., making Pixar lose its dominating edge in animation. So if other studios are clearly doing well, why hasn't Pixar been able to do the same? Some say it has to do with the films themselves, which does make sense. The high standard that Pixar has set means that any underperforming film, like Elemental and Lightyear with their lackluster stories, is seen as a significant failure, which deters viewers from going to watch them. These seemingly copy and paste stories could mean that Pixar's foolproof storytelling formula doesn't work anymore. but I think there's a better reason why their films seem off recently. Pixar lost a huge asset of their creative team when John Lasseter stepped down in 2018. He played a significant role in creating iconic films like Toy Story, Cars, A Bug's Life, and more. John's leadership and creative vision were crucial in Pixar's early triumphs, but his departure seems to have significantly impacted the quality of Pixar's recent films. Now, with all of that said, Pixar obviously isn't done for. They still have massively successful franchises to work with, and some of their recent films have been critically successful while also embodying the essence of Pixar's early magic. In short, they can still make great movies, but what else can they do to get back on top? Well, to start, Pixar could focus on revitalizing its storytelling approach, returning to its roots of engaging narratives that captivate both adults and families. They could focus on innovating like they did with Toy Story, both in animation styles and storytelling techniques, while moving away from overused formulas and franchises. To add to that, the studio could benefit from using their classic shorts as a low-risk way to test audience interest in new concepts. And maybe they could invest in better marketing for their films so more people are aware of their theater releases. Regardless of what they do, it seems like Pixar is at a crossroads, and if they continue down the path they're currently on without innovating, it could spell out trouble for the company's future.